Thank you so much, Glo. It's fantastic what you're doing. I feel honored that I'm here. Thank you.
Pleasure.
I wanted to ask you, so I'm Egyptian and I'm in Germany and I'm like becoming a coach. So I am a coach and I was an overachiever all my life. And I know I'm meant for something bigger. Okay, so my question to you is, like, I'm kind of struggling to build everything. And I want to know from your experience and your space, how much did it take you to actually fall into getting results?
Yeah.
Because, you know, I've led like a life, I have a PhD, so I've led a life of like working and seeing results. And somehow, like, yeah, I just would like to know what's your take on that. Thank you.
Of course, great question. So, you know, I've been blogging. I've been digital storytelling online for the last 20 years. So I started at 11 years old. And what I love about that is when you have no pressure or expectations or like bills to pay at 11, thankfully, you do something for the passion of it. So I got really comfortable fine-tuning my voice without the pressure of being perfect. And I think whenever we do something for the first time, or we're stepping into our calling, we have this expectation that, okay, I'm reintroducing myself to the world. Therefore, I must get it right. Therefore, I need to make sure all the dots are in place. My website has to be up, my color palette, my branding, my logo, everything has to be perfect. Let me tell you, no one can relate to perfection. The less perfect you are, the more relatable, the more engagement, the better and deeper the community. And that feels very backward. But the truth is, if you are too perfect, you almost feel untouchable, and people don't know how to connect with that. So it's almost like the sloppier progress you make, the more willing you are to show up, even before you found your voice, before you know how to walk, before you know where you're going. People seeing you take action anyway is commendable. Like, man, Sarah, wow, Sarah, you've grown so much. I remember, Sarah, you started doing IG Lives in January, and now you're still doing them, but I could feel the confidence in your voice, and it's so inspiring, and now I'm going to do it too. People love that. When you can show them what it's like to be a human, my goodness, so it's messy sometimes. It's not always going to be, I've got all the answers, I've got all the right things to say, I know what I'm doing. I always joke that I switch my Instagram bio every month. I'm growing, so I'm just evolving into someone I don't even know who I am anymore. It's a good thing. I'm just growing so much. And I've got all of these incredible opportunities coming up. I don't know if anyone watches Red Table Talk with Jada Pinkett Smith, Will Smith's wife, but she invited me on her show. Like, I'm going to be on Red Table. Like, what? That wasn't on my vision board. But it's like when you're doing the work, and you're just showing up and you're being you, that's what people fall in love with. It's like people have no choice but to be like, man, she's different, just different. Be willing to be different, because my goodness, that's what people fall in love with. Great question, Sarah. Alicia.
Yeah, Alicia, I'll answer to both. Oh my goodness. Thank you for taking my question, Glo. I was just actually writing it down. Anyway, so my question to you is, I have literally just started to get really comfortable with sharing my story and my, being vulnerable. I've just started a podcast, and thank you. One of the last episodes was about dealing with grief. So when you spoke about your dad, I lost my mum also. So, from that perspective, it's quite hard to then replenish yourself after that. So I wanted to know how you replenish yourself after you've been very vulnerable.
I have to have very strict boundaries with the way I use social media, because I want you guys to understand social media content is like junk food. And every time I say something, I don't want you guys to take it the wrong way, but a podcast, an article, that's salad. Social media is junk food. Because if all you're doing is consuming social media all day, that's junk, highlight reels, random opinions, random people, bad facts, bad story. Like, you're getting all of this randomness, and like, that's not healthy. But if you take yourself away from like the quick bites of social media, and you just sit down with a podcast that maybe is like a podcast episode on grievance, or an article on grieving, you know, and you sit with a wholesome piece of content, like that was super helpful for my healing and super helpful for me kind of bouncing back. But with social media, I come on to post, I double tap a few comments, as many comments as I can. I'm just like, just to, you know, just to engage in the comments a little bit, and then I hop off and I live my life, and I serve my community, and I read books, and I play the piano, and I have hobbies that fill my cup back up. But if I lived my life on social media, I'm not sure I would have this level of energy and joy. So I want you to give yourself permission to pour into yourself, pour into others, because, you know, you want to serve your community, but make sure you're pouring into yourself first.
Thank you so much for saying that, because that's what I've been doing. And, you know, sometimes you feel like I should be over there, you know, doing the whole social media thing, but I've just been quiet in the mind. So thank you. Thank you for saying that. And
what's great is social media is going to be around forever. Like, you know, we're going to be, I'm going to be 102. Like, hey guys, what's up? Isn't it crazy? Like, it's going to be around forever, you know? So I don't want you guys to ever feel like you've missed the mark with like having your moment. Like, you have tomorrow, you have next week, you have next month. Give yourself grace, show up when you're ready, and social media will be there when you're ready. Ooh, ask me the questions.
My question is, like, I'm in the business of starting something new. Like, I want to be a coach as well. And I've heard, like, sometimes you have to be like Teflon and don't let bad advice stick. But how do you decide whether, like, say for your mum when you were doing your thing, how do you decide whether you're being Teflon or your ego's getting in the way?
This is good. Okay, so there's a couple. Ego is the enemy. Sorry, you guys know that I only speak in book recommendations. So I'm gonna type that in really quick. Ego is the Enemy by Ryan Holiday. It's an incredible book that speaks to the ego. And I believe that first of all of us have an ego. This is something that come to terms with the fact that our ego wants to protect our identity. Our ego creates this persona, and all it wants to do is protect it. And I think you have to have a daily practice of humility, where you are willing to be corrected, you are willing to take advice, you are willing to learn. And I think adapting a student mentality as a part of a core value of my mission and the way I show up, that helps me keep my ego in check. And, you know, when it comes to my mother, or when it comes to people in your life, maybe they, you know, don't agree with you, or they they don't encourage you, and they're trying to discourage you from chasing your dream, or doing something meaningful, or whatever it is. When it comes to conversations with them, the best thing you can do is invite them to see what you're doing and the meaning, how it's meaningful. Invite them to see how your work is meaningful. I never try to like say like, oh, I made it without you, or I'm the reason I did this myself. No, I never have that kind of conversation. And I think when it comes to, gosh, because this is so layered and so nuanced, and I love that we're talking about this, but I think the ego is something that you have to like constantly and consistently try to squash. And again, humility is another one of my core values. I believe that I am where I am because the God I serve has blessed me more than abundantly. And I feel very grateful and thankful, and I have a lot of gratitude for that. But I also know that nothing that I've done is of myself. It is not my own like amazing greatness that I'm here and Brendon Burchard shares his platform with me. It's like people have seen something, people have poured into me, people have shouted my praises in rooms where I had no business being in, people have spoke highly of me because they've seen my work. And so you guys have to also approach your platform with like, am I creating content that would make Oprah proud? And this is, I say this as a joke, but this is actually serious, how I approach my content. Oprah is my dream mentor. I want her to one day say, you know what, this Glow chick, I'm just gonna fly her on my private jet so I can meet her because she's so amazing. So when I show up, I'm like, am I creating content that would make Mama Oprah proud? Like, is this, so I think of your dream future mentor and create content that they would be proud of. Does that help, Bryce? Did I answer your?
Yeah, no, I've always like tried to have humility as well, like, because it turns arrogance into confidence. So yeah, humility's humility is a big thing for me, but it was just kind of like, you got to listen to what they're saying, but you don't want to stop your dreams, but you don't want your ego to get in the way in case you're losing something that could be very valuable. So no, thanks for that.
Yeah, and just to quickly add to that as well, I think 10% of the people in your life are going to discourage you from whatever you're doing. And people only discourage you. Sometimes it's not even from a bad place. It's literally to protect you. They don't want you to see your dreams crushed. They don't want you to end up homeless. They don't want you to lose money. Like sometimes people are negative to you because they're trying to protect you from failure, you know? So also acknowledging that some people who don't believe in us, it comes from a good place. So I just wanted to mention that.
How do you handle team members or friends that want to usurp your leadership? So they, you know, you're leading and all of a sudden they you know, they're going to push their way into the front of you and take over.
You know, that's such a great question because I've experienced that before. And a lot of times people act out of a place of lack. Maybe they worked a job where they were always silenced or they never got to speak. And so they see the opportunity to finally have their voice be heard and appreciated. And so every now and then, like maybe they speak over me or there's a moment where my idea is disregarded because they think their idea is better. I let them have that moment because oftentimes in the end, they come back and they say, oh, Glo, actually, you know, the last call, I think did I come across this way? I'm sorry if you know, and I'll, you know, people don't intentionally try to outshine you and just, it really comes from a place of like, they're overcompensating from an insecurity that they probably haven't recognized. So I try to hold space for that. If it gets out of hand, I might, you know, have a private conversation like, hey, you know, on calls, I would appreciate, you know, I'll come to you if you have something to say. I'll make sure there's time at the end where I allow you to, you know, vocalize your thoughts and ideas. But I would love to be able to get all of my thoughts out in the beginning, XYZ. But yeah, I try not to make it a big deal because I think people already feel embarrassed when they feel called out. So I never want to make them feel like, oh my God, every time I'm talking, like you're always so rude. I'm like, hey, you know, and I'm a little bit like, you know, let's try this. Again, going back to the language of effective communication. Why don't we try? But at the end of the calls, do it.
I love that.
Cool.
I love that. Thank you.
Amazing,
Right.
of course.
Hey, it's really nice to be here. Thanks so much, Glo. I'm really inspired by everything you do. I'm a traveler myself, and I've been in the road for 7 years already. And I feel difficult to find a partner. I feel like, what is the first step to find that connection when you are always in the move? Because it seems like everything passed so fast, and then suddenly the war stopped. And it's so difficult to start like connecting with people again because there are so many fears behind. So that's what's happening to me now.
You know, I love that you asked this because when I look at myself and some of my flaws, I try to like overanalyze, over-optimize, and hyper-plan everything. And I'm like, Glo, you can't force or control love. And that's probably why I suck at it, because I'm like trying to like figure out, okay, if I stop traveling at this time and I go to this country, then I will find the person by asking these 10 questions. And it doesn't work like that. And love is almost this like ultimate act of surrender. We have to allow that, like, we are putting ourselves in positions to meet incredible people and allowing conversations to be organic. Because I think one thing that sometimes women, we tend to do is we get straight to like the hardcore questions at the beginning. Where do you want to live? How many kids do you want? Like, when are you trying to get married? Like, what's your engagement length and all that kind of stuff. But I think if you take the pressure off of the next person that you meet that you just start to feel butterflies about, like, oh my gosh, this person could be the one, allow yourself to get to know them as a person first, a lover second. Because a lot of times when we feel that emotional and physical attraction to someone, we're so anxious to like make it work. And now we have this box of like, okay, this person is going to be my partner. And so now I got to make sure they fit into this perfect box that I've created. Or it's like you can get to know them and let them create a box with you. And there's an analogy that a lot of people use is that when you're coming into a relationship, someone has a suitcase of their luggage. And then the other person has a suitcase of their luggage. And now you can only travel with one suitcase. So you have to take stuff from your suitcase and their suitcase, put it into one and somehow fit and hope it's not overweight, or else you have to pay the excess luggage fee. But that's not an option here. Okay, so it's really hard. And of course, you know, you get lonely on the road. I have a journal, a husband journal, and I just basically, I know it's kind of creepy. I can't believe I'm sharing this. It's like letters that I'm writing to my future husband to one day be able to give him and say, I've been waiting for you. I've been patient, but here's what I've been like manifesting. And so it's just a little journal that I got off of Amazon. So maybe that might help you, just writing like future love letters to your partner and one day hoping to give it to them.
Wow. Yes, it's a good idea. Wow. Thanks so much.
Of course. Where are you going next? Can I squeeze that question in?
Yes. I'm going to France, to Cannes. So,
amazing. Oh, yes.
Yeah, I currently back in my hometown in Chile. So before the pandemic started, I traveled 77 countries, and my goal was to visit each country in the world to portray the ethnic diversity and cultural richness. So I was so focused in that project that I forget about that other part of, I love myself, but I feel like it's now time to share that part, that adventure with someone special.
Oh, I feel you.
Thanks so much, Brendon, for everything you do. I love everything you are doing, and I'm so grateful for everything.
So Dr. Duni Atalabi.
The part that resonated with me, which actually is my question, recovering people pleasers with trust issues. Me, you, same thing. So my question is, how do you catapult yourself from, or catapult your recovery, or kind of facilitate your recovery? Because I think I do need a faster recovery, and there's no like AA or People Pleaser Anonymous that I could join. So please help a sister. Thank you.
That is hilarious. I had to learn that, Glow, if you don't love yourself enough to give boundaries, people will see that. And one thing, when you are a kind person and you have a big heart, you will attract leeches. There's a reason mosquitoes flock to the light. Or what are the bugs? The one that get buzzed when they go to the light. There's a reason the leeches are attracted to the light. They can see your big heart. They can see that you're a giver. They can see that you're kind. And they're like, how much can I milk out of this big-hearted person? And I used to be like, people would literally use their trauma, like they would use their trauma to bond us. If we bonded over similar trauma, that's called a trauma bond. It is not healthy. If the only time you talk to someone is when you're bonding over trauma, that is a big red flag that they are like not in a good place, and they probably need to see a therapist, and they probably need to unpack that in a different way. But I realized there were people in my life that trauma bonded us. And because I was recovering out of my trauma, I could see their, I went from trauma to triumph, but I can see where there was a void. And I'm like, okay, well, they're comfortable sharing it with me, so I guess I got to fill it. So I got to be their mother, their nurturer, their financial provider. Oh, they're complaining that they can't do this. Let me do it for them. I was enabling like very toxic behavior because I didn't know how to set a boundary. So for me, it was like, people will respect you more when they notice there's a boundary. And when I get emails, because I get dozens of emails daily, like, Glow, I would love to have you on my podcast. Glow, do this, do this. In the past, because I didn't like know what I was worth, I was like, oh yes, I'll do everything to make everyone happy because I'm a good person. I got a big heart. If I say yes to everyone, they'll all love me. Nope, they will use you and they will abuse you. Sorry, not everyone. Let me not speak in absolutes here. But I had to get to a place of like, okay, Glow, what actually excites you? What's aligned with who you're becoming? When I say no to people now, so many of them now can respect that, like, they're like, oh, this comes from a good place. And it's not a no, period. I know there's a lot of memes that say no is a complete sentence. And I'm like, well, not in my vocabulary. No needs a comma and. And Brene Brown really speaks about this well. It's no, and I thank you for considering me. No, and I appreciate the offer. No, and circle back in a few months and let's talk, you know? So it's an act of self-love. I don't know if there's like a thought process. There's another book that I'm reading, Relational Intelligence by Dr. Darius Daniels. And what he talks about is not every adjustment needs an announcement. So when you're drawing a boundary, you don't have to tell the friend, hey, you're abusing my kindness, so we can't be friends anymore. Like, it's not how it works. We're gonna have a little bit more emotional intelligence than that. But when you do start to distance yourself from people who are abusing your kindness, or you feel like you've been people pleasing them, it comes like one action at a time. Like, oh, can you do this for me? Sorry, I don't have the capacity. Oh, come back to me in a month. Or I love to use the word capacity, because capacity has nothing to do with them. If I do not have the capacity to do this task, that's on me, and it has nothing to do with you. But my limited capacity, like my free time, is not an indication of my availability. If I say I'm free on Saturday, that doesn't mean free to hang out. It means free to be in monk mode and read books all day, because that's how I love myself. Okay. Yeah. Oh, I like that. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you so much.
My pleasure. Such a great question.
This can be your day for personal growth. This can be that day you committed to and you remember and you go, that was the day I got myself a community. I got better coaches. I committed to making my life the absolute best that I could. This is that day. Make today your growth day. Click the button on this page and sign up right now.